Have you ever felt gripped by fear, whether it's a looming deadline, a big life change, or even a quiet dread that won't let you rest at night? What if there was a way to face those anxieties head-on, using an ancient yet thoroughly practical philosophy? The Stoics believed we can transform fear into a stepping stone for growth, rather than letting it paralyze us. Today, we'll explore 10 ways to conquer fear with Stoic principles, weaving together timeless wisdom and modern examples in a single, flowing guide. By the end, you'll see how a calm, reasoned approach can defuse your deepest anxieties and let you move through life with greater courage. If these ideas resonate, I'd really appreciate a like, a share, or even your subscription, so we can keep exploring how Stoicism lightens our mental burdens and sharpens our resilience. Now let's dive in. 1. Acknowledge fear as a natural signal, not a final verdict. The first step to conquering fear is simple but profound. You must recognize that fear is a normal human emotion, not a fatal flaw. Sometimes, we shame ourselves for feeling afraid, as if being nervous or anxious reveals weakness. But the Stoics, particularly Seneca, argued that fear is often just a sign we need more clarity. By acknowledging fear's presence, you set the stage for dealing with it constructively. Consider a situation like giving a presentation at work or stepping into a new career path. You might feel that flutter in your stomach, your thoughts swirling with "what if I fail?" or "everyone will judge me." Instead of denying it, you can say, "Yes, I'm scared, and that's okay." This acceptance prevents you from compounding the fear with guilt over having the fear in the first place. Stoic philosophy teaches that the real question isn't, "How do I eliminate all fear?" but "How can I respond to it?" If you treat fear as an alarm telling you to prepare, you can harness that energy. For instance, if you're afraid of forgetting your speech, you might practice it more thoroughly, or if you're anxious about a job interview, you refine your knowledge of the role. In each case, you're not letting fear define your self-worth. You're simply using it as a prompt to act wisely. Moreover, by labeling fear for what it is, an emotional reaction, not a prophecy of doom, you avoid letting it balloon into paralyzing terror. Epictetus advised reminding ourselves, it's not events that disturb us, but our judgments about them. So when fear arises, step back and think, is my interpretation realistic, or am I catastrophizing? If you're bracing for the worst, you can gently challenge that assumption, recognizing fear might be exaggerating. Over time, acknowledging fear as normal, instead of seeing it as failure, fosters an atmosphere of self-compassion and courage. You come to realize that fear doesn't vanish overnight, but it loses its grip when you no longer treat it as an enemy. Embrace fear, let it highlight where you need to focus, and then calmly plan your response. This shift in mindset is a crucial Stoic move, transforming fear from an immobilizing force into a nudge that propels you to take thoughtful action. 2. Distinguish between what you can and can't control. A hallmark Stoic principle is dividing challenges into two buckets: what lies within your control, your actions, your judgments, and what lies outside it, other people's behaviors, random events, or the inevitable twists of fate. Fear often flourishes when you try to manage aspects beyond your influence, leaving you anxious and exhausted. Letting go of those external concerns can drastically reduce your sense of dread. Take a simple example. You're worried about tomorrow's weather ruining an outdoor gathering. No amount of fretting stops the rain. The Stoic response is to accept nature's unpredictability and focus on what you can do, perhaps securing a backup indoor space or reminding guests to bring umbrellas. Instead of letting fear run wild, the whole day will be ruined. You keep your equilibrium by controlling your actions, not the elements. If you apply this principle to deeper fears, like the potential end of a relationship or the possibility of job loss, the same logic holds. You can show love, communicate openly, and be a supportive partner, but you can't force someone to stay. You can excel at your work, sharpen your skills, and adapt, but you can't guarantee the company's decisions. By sinking mental energy into the domain that's truly yours, you free yourself from the paralyzing sense of helplessness. Epictetus famously said, "It's not what happens to you, but how you react that matters. When fear creeps in, Stoics recommend pausing to ask, is this something I can directly affect? If the answer is yes, channel that anxious energy into preparation. If the answer is no, practice acceptance. This is not passive resignation, it's active clarity. By ceasing the futile struggle to control what you can't, you reclaim mental space for solutions in areas that truly matter. Over time, you'll notice your fear levels drop as you focus on your real power. That clarity doesn't guarantee everything turns out perfectly, but it does ensure you're not hemorrhaging emotional energy on illusions. As you get more comfortable trusting this approach, fear's hold weakens. You realize that acceptance of the uncontrollable is not giving up. It's freeing yourself from the treadmill of worry. Freed from that burden, you navigate life's uncertainties with greater calm, ironically improving your chances of a positive outcome. 4. Embrace voluntary discomfort to prove resilience. Another Stoic strategy for conquering fear is the practice of voluntarily exposing yourself to mild discomfort, like skipping an indulgence, sleeping without your usual pillow, or taking a cold shower. While this might sound unpleasant, the purpose is to train your mind that you can handle less than ideal conditions. When genuine adversity or new anxieties arise, you recall that you've been through controlled hardships and emerged just fine. This memory undercuts fear's power. Take a scenario where you're deeply afraid of losing your job. Without going to extremes, you might try living on a reduced budget for a week, spending only on absolute essentials. By the end, you discover that while it's not glamorous, you could adapt if money became tight. That knowledge injects your mind with a sense of readiness, diminishing your dread of unemployment. It's not that you want to lose your job. You've simply proven to yourself that a less comfortable state is survivable. Stoics like Seneca deliberately practiced wearing simpler clothes or eating plainer foods to reduce their dependence on luxury. The side effect? Their fear of losing those luxuries diminished. If you're terrified of traveling alone, a smaller voluntary challenge might be going out for a solo day trip to a new part of town, gradually showing yourself that independence isn't catastrophic. The confidence you glean from such micro-challenges can later apply when bigger threats loom. Moreover, these small exposures often dismantle the illusions that fear fosters. You might realize, skipping lattes for a week didn't break me, or I can handle a day without a smartphone. Freed from illusions of helplessness, your mind remains steadier in real crises. This approach also fosters gratitude. Once you return to your normal comforts, you appreciate them more, ironically fueling a positive mindset that can offset future anxieties. The ultimate goal isn't masochism, it's mental conditioning. By intentionally tasting mild discomfort, you chip away at the terror that often stems from, I could never handle that. Over repeated exposures, you accumulate proof of your resilience, transforming fear from an overwhelming monster into a manageable challenge. In essence, you cultivate courage through direct experience, forging an inner stance that says, if life gets rough, I know I can adapt. That stance stands as a formidable shield against fear's onslaught. 5. Reinterpret failure as data, not a mortal blow. Fear often thrives on the idea that if we fail at something important, a job, a relationship, a creative endeavor, the result is disastrous, a blow from which we can't recover. Stoic philosophy flips this script by emphasizing that every failure is data, a neutral outcome telling us what might or might not work. If we absorb that data, adjust our strategy, and try again, we remove the sense of final doom that fuels fear. Imagine you're set on starting a new business or writing a book, but paralyzed by fear of failing. Instead of letting that dread stifle action, you adopt a Stoic view. If it doesn't pan out, I'll learn critical lessons, refine my approach, and come back stronger. By lowering the stakes from all or nothing to test and learn, you free yourself to begin. Yes, you might still feel nervous, but the fear no longer wields absolute power. Failure is demoted from personal catastrophe to an instructive detour. Epictetus taught that our judgments create the emotional charge. If you label an unsuccessful attempt as, I'm worthless, fear cements itself. But if you label it as an experiment that yielded insights, your mind remains open and unafraid. This mental pivot doesn't mean you court failure on purpose. Rather, you don't let its possibility loom as an unbeatable threat. You see it as a possible step in the path toward mastery. In practical terms, you might keep a lesson log each time you try something that doesn't work. Instead of dwelling on shame or negative self-talk, you write down what you discovered about your technique, the market, or your emotional triggers. Over time, these logs become a library of wisdom, reminding you that you consistently grow from each shortfall. That recognition undercuts fear because you realize your identity isn't staked on an outcome. Moreover, Stoics stress that your worth as a human isn't tied to external achievements. You can remain virtuous, kind, and self-respecting whether you succeed at a particular task or not. Once you internalize that belief, the fear of failure melts away. If things go well, great. If not, you glean the knowledge and continue forward with your core integrity intact. In this environment, fear loses its psychological sting, replaced by a quiet determination to keep learning, adapting, and staying true to your principles. 6. Engage in regular reflection to diffuse hidden fears. Fear can lurk beneath the surface of daily life, subtly shaping your decisions and reactions. One potent Stoic tool for conquering fear is regular, mindful reflection, whether in the morning, evening, or a short break during the day. By sitting down with your thoughts, you can spot the shadowy anxieties you've been unknowingly hauling around and address them before they erupt into full-blown dread. Picture your average day, a snippet of worry about an upcoming project, a leftover tension from a curt remark your boss made, or a faint panic about your health. If you never examine these threads, they weave into a larger knot of anxiety, overshadowing your mood. But if you set aside 5 to 10 minutes, say, journaling, or just quietly pondering, you can gently untangle them. You might ask yourself, is this fear rational? Is there something I can do? That question-based approach, championed by Epictetus, clarifies your domain of action. Often, you discover a chunk of your fear is exaggeration or a leftover from a previous incident that no longer applies. For example, if you panic about making a certain phone call, reflection might reveal that your real concern is sounding incompetent. Once acknowledged, you realize you can prepare bullet points and approach it calmly, drastically reducing the worry. Without reflection, that fear might remain an undefined tension all day, fueling procrastination. This practice also ensures you don't carry the day's unresolved anxieties into bedtime, which can disrupt sleep and build longer-term stress. By doing a short recap in the evening, you identify any lingering triggers, confirm if any immediate actions are needed, and let go of the rest. Over time, you maintain a lighter mental load. People may notice you rarely seem freaked out or edgy. That's the outward sign of your consistent Stoic reflection. Don't worry if at first it feels odd or forced. Regular Stoic reflection is akin to mental housekeeping. Only through repetition does it become natural. And just as cleaning your physical space prevents chaos, cleaning your mental space prevents fear from piling up. Each short session helps you catch creeping anxieties early, reframe them, and step into the next moment with renewed composure. In the grand scheme, it's a simple, daily act that fosters fearlessness, derived from reasoned self-awareness rather than forced bravado. 7. Observe calm role models and imitate their fearless demeanor. A lesser-known Stoic technique for conquering fear is the power of observing and then emulating calm, courageous individuals. If you're surrounded by people who panic at every setback, it's natural to absorb that frantic mindset. But if you seek out or study role models who face adversity with a steady hand, their poise can rub off on you. This principle resonates with the Stoic belief that humans learn virtue by witnessing it in action. Think of a friend or colleague who seems unshakable. Whether it's a sudden deadline or bad news in the media, they respond thoughtfully rather than freaking out. They might not call themselves a Stoic, but they exemplify the ethos, controlling what they can, accepting the rest, and pushing ahead with composure. By spending more time around them, or at least observing how they handle tense situations, you pick up cues: a measured tone of voice, a small pause before reacting, a refusal to escalate negative talk. Over weeks, you find yourself imitating these micro-behaviors, and your fear reflex decreases. Stoics like Marcus Aurelius or Cato also served as examples in ancient times, people who faced extreme challenges without crumbling. Today, reading about their lives, or even analyzing modern heroes who demonstrate Stoic traits can be just as effective. The aim is not blind hero worship, but gleaning practical techniques for calm under pressure. Maybe you read about how a certain leader navigated a crisis, focusing on the decisions they made and the mental frameworks they used. That example can implant a mental script you draw upon when your own moment of crisis arrives. Moreover, the Stoic approach encourages conversations in your mind with your admired figure. How would they handle this fear? By placing yourself in their shoes, you step out of panic into strategic thinking. Over time, you shape your identity around these steadier behaviors. Fear loses some of its grip because you've seen, in living or historical examples, how challenges can be met with rational poise rather than frantic meltdown. Finally, noticing calm role models also dissolves the illusion that being fearless demands superhuman qualities. You realize it's a set of small, trainable habits: short pauses before reacting, unwavering focus on solutions, and composure in the face of the unknown. If they can do it, so can you, reinforcing the Stoic conviction that fear need never define your path, provided you align your mindset with examples of measured bravery. 8. Use humor as a pressure valve, not a denial mechanism. Stoics are often portrayed as grim, but in truth, they appreciated the power of levity. Sometimes, acknowledging your fear with a wry smile or gentle humor can shrink its intensity. This isn't about mocking genuine danger, but about releasing the tension that arises from viewing every threat as monumental. A small joke, an ironic observation, or even a light self-deprecating quip can defuse the emotional charge, letting you approach fear more calmly. Imagine you're nervous about a performance review. You might quip to a friend, "Worst case, I'll become the world's most overqualified lemonade stand owner." It's a silly line, but that dash of humor reframes the scenario from catastrophe to possibility. You're not dismissing the importance of your review. You're just giving yourself permission to see it as one event, not the apocalypse. Seneca might not have told knock-knock jokes, but he recognized that stepping back to see life's bigger picture often reveals the absurdity in how we inflate minor threats. If a coworker's negativity petrifies you, sometimes naming the situation in a playful way, "Looks like Jerry's in doom and gloom mode again. I guess the world is ending for the 10th time this month," grants you distance from his gloom. You no longer absorb his fear as your own. Of course, Stoic humor differs from denial. You're not ignoring genuine risks or trivializing real responsibilities. Instead, you're using humor as a pressure valve, letting out steam so fear can't build to destructive levels. If faced with a legitimate threat, like a major health concern, you wouldn't make a joke that dismisses it entirely. But you might gently poke fun at your habit of overthinking, or share a small laugh with a loved one about the weird things we try to calm ourselves. That camaraderie lifts some dread, so you can take the next step in a more balanced state. Over time, sprinkling humor into your Stoic approach breaks the monotony of grave introspection. You handle fear with rational strategies, but also lighten the emotional weight through occasional wit. This combination keeps your morale high and your mind flexible, ensuring fear doesn't lock you into a grim, joyless path. People around you may notice that even in tense moments, you have a mild spark, an ability to grin, breathe, and carry on. That spark is part of conquering fear, Stoic style. 9. Practice daily reflection to remove residual fear. Even after employing Stoic tactics, like focusing on what you can control and reframing worst-case scenarios, fear can linger like a shadow, slowly accumulating over days. That's where daily reflection proves crucial. Each evening, or whenever suits you, you spend a few moments assessing your day's fears. What worried me today? Did I handle it or let it gnaw at me? By shining a gentle light on these remnants of anxiety, you dispel them before they grow into bigger concerns. Imagine finishing a stressful workday. You felt a wave of panic about a new project, but never pinned down exactly why. During reflection, you realize the panic stems from feeling underqualified. Now that you've named it, you can decide on real solutions, seeking a mentor's advice or doing extra reading. The fear transitions from an amorphous dread into a problem-solving prompt. Stoics like Epictetus also advocated an examined day, urging you to revisit your responses to adversity or conflict. Suppose you had a disagreement with a friend that left you uneasy. Reflection helps you parse. Was my fear of losing the friendship overshadowing rational dialogue? If so, you note that next time, you'll speak your truth calmly instead of yielding to fear-driven silence or aggression. Over repeated nights, this mini-review fosters incremental improvements in how you handle fear. Moreover, daily reflection prevents fear from piling up unnoticed. You might find that, for 3 days in a row, your mind has circled around the same upcoming event, like a medical test or an important meeting. On day 3, you see the pattern and take steps to address it, rather than letting it simmer into a full-blown anxiety cycle. This short check-in maintains emotional hygiene, akin to brushing your teeth to stave off decay. Additionally, reflection can be a time to incorporate gratitude. Realizing you overcame small fears in the day, like calling a new client or speaking up in a group meeting, reinforces your self-confidence. You remind yourself that you're capable, which in turn disarms tomorrow's fears. Over weeks and months, this consistent practice transforms your default mindset. Fear no longer accumulates in the background. You greet it at day's end, glean the lesson, and step into tomorrow unburdened. 10. Align with a higher purpose to outgrow small fears. The final pillar in conquering fear through Stoic principles lies in living for something larger than the immediate dread. When you anchor your life to a guiding purpose, be it moral excellence, serving your community, or nurturing loved ones, daily fears lose their power to dominate. You see them as small waves in a bigger ocean, not insurmountable tsunamis. Imagine you fear public speaking. Typically, that fear screams, "Everyone will judge me." But if your deeper aim is to share knowledge that could genuinely benefit others, you override that self-centered terror. You speak not for applause, but to help. By reframing your talk as service, your nerves become secondary. Marcus Aurelius often wrote about fulfilling one's role in society, emphasizing that personal anxieties fade when overshadowed by a sense of duty or contribution. Similarly, if your grand purpose is to raise a kind, resilient child, petty or irrational fears about what neighbors think might fade. You realize your focus is on building a loving environment, not performing for external validation. That clarity orients you away from self-conscious worry. Over time, living for something that transcends your individual insecurities fosters a calm determination. Even in career terms, if you're guided by a vision to create solutions or uplift a community, moments of fear, like pitching an idea or facing possible rejection, become stepping stones. You can ask, does this fear deserve to block the bigger mission? Usually, the mission wins, fueling the courage to move forward. Epictetus would say you pick the right perspective to weigh each threat. If it's, will this hamper my primary purpose, rather than, will this bruise my ego, you typically find the Stoic strength to proceed. This sense of alignment also combats existential fears, fear of mortality or life's unpredictability. By seeing yourself as part of a grander cosmic order, you accept that your role is to act virtuously in the time you have. You see each day as a chance to contribute, so fear-based hesitations recede. Instead of being consumed by what if I fail, you focus on how do I serve. That shift breathes confidence into your stance, helping you stand taller, calmer, and freer from the mental shackles of fear. Have you seen how conquering fear isn't about erasing every anxious thought, but about transforming your relationship with worry? Across these 10 Stoic approaches, from recognizing the nature of fear, to focusing on what you can control, to aligning with a purpose, You gain tools to reduce anxiety's grip and walk through life with greater courage. If these ideas resonate, I'd be grateful if you like, share, or subscribe, so we can continue exploring how Stoicism lights the path to peace and resilience. Fear will always knock at the door, but with these principles, you'll find the confidence to answer, calm, composed, and ready to grow beyond your doubts.